Hello everybody, and welcome to another Stage 3 VFX Campfire. And in this one, I want to talk to you about Custom VFX Supervision Software. What the heck is that and what is it for? Well, this is for people who are freelance visual effects supervisors, or maybe you actually work at a studio but you don't like the software or the process that you're using. This is for people who are interested in becoming a visual effects supervisor, running your own studio. This is for anybody who's working on their own independent film, movie project, anybody that's organizing a fairly large animation or visual effects project. This is for you, because I'm going to show you the inside workings of what I do here at Inferno Visual Effects to keep large things very organized, especially like a film, which can have potentially hundreds of visual effects shots with all kinds of notes, with all kinds of concept art and storyboards and all kinds of stuff to keep track of. How do you do it? That's what this is for. So why is this actually needed? When I'm working on a project, I kind of imagine myself as being Batman, not in the crime fighting sense or the super strength sense at all, but I like to have a bat cave. I like to have everything in front of me, a global dashboard of many options where I could see the big picture as if you were 10 miles up looking at the whole landscape of whatever you're working on. And that way, from that perspective, you can quickly see where things are going wrong, what you can improve on, what needs attention, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm a big fan of global dashboards, all control, all in one place. And that's a big strength of what I wrote here. I searched for a lot of software out there to kind of do what I wanted to do, and I couldn't find anything that I really wanted. I couldn't find anything that met all the bullet points of what I needed, so I coded up my own. I'm going to show it to you, and perhaps you'll like it too. One thing I see a lot of VFX supervisors and people in the community do a lot is there's lots of endless Google Sheets and cloud folders, and that can be kind of a logistical nightmare because everyone on your team, everybody needs different access. Everybody needs different rights to different things. Pretty soon you have a mountain of links that you're trying to share with people, and people ultimately lose, hey, where's this folder? Where's that? Producers and directors who are looking at your stuff, they want to see progress, and they want to see different things that perhaps artists on your team need to see. Directors and producers don't need to see all the inside progress. They just need to see, hey, when's it done and how good does it look, right? So there's all kinds of needs for that. Security and confidentiality, of course, is a huge role too. And I built that into this system. Basically, it's everything all in one place, concept art, breakdowns, progress. And then the other big thing, VFX estimating, figuring out how long something is going to take and how much it's going to cost. That's really hard. And to be honest with you, I suck at it. I've never been a good estimator, and it's a dark art that only a few people I've ever met are really good at. I go by the golden rule to say, I'm going to figure out how long this is going to take, and then I'll probably double it or triple the time because things always come up. So estimating is really hard, and this system really helps you estimate VFX projects for cost, for time, for resources. This system easily allows you to punch in numbers that you already know, like what does this type of artist cost? How long does this element actually take, et cetera, et cetera. And then it just spits out the result of what you're actually looking for, as well as breaking down the different breakdowns. So let me give you a quick tour of my custom VFX supervision software that I use here. If you're interested, let me know, and I'm happy to make this available to you or the public if there's any interest in that. Away we go. All right, so the first thing you got to do is you got to go to my site, of course, and then jump to client login. That puts it in right there, and it's going to link you over to either my VFX company, Inferno VFX, or Stage 3 VFX, which is our global VFX school. I'm going to jump over to Inferno VFX, and it's going to give you just a bunch of projects that I already have open, and I'm just going to click on one of them, acting the first 6 lessons. That's going to allow me to jump right in and show you everything that we need to see. There's a couple big screens here that we're going to analyze real quick, and the biggest one is probably the master shot list and the production breakdowns. What's the work and how much does it cost? Across the board up here, this will tell you how I've divided up a major project. Breakdowns, pre-production, production, discussions, documents, preferences, help, and contact the team. And I'll show you all of this super fast. So this master shot list here is basically the guts of the whole system. And if you scroll down, I've unapproved a lot of these shots because this is an older project that we've already shipped. And just scrolling down, you'll see all the different shots that are involved in this show, as you can see, and each has their own thumbnail, and it shows you a number of things that are pretty important. I'm going to scroll all the way to the end. You'll see different sequences, elements like that. But going up, what are we looking at? Every VFX project comes down to one thing, the number of frames, right? And how hard is it to make the pixels look correct on each one of those frames? So each one of these things is actually divided into the shot. The shot number, of course, never changes. Each gets its own shot number. The sequence, whether it's Park or Empire State Building or whatever the case may be. A thumbnail of that shot, which is super important. That's always frame 0 of whatever shot that is. A description of it. The length, super important. How many frames in that shot. This little item over here, this determines whether we actually have the plates. Do the plates come from the editor? Do we have the footage, whatever is needed? This shows me right away, very quickly, hey, I don't have the plates for this shot and this shot and this shot, and I could tell the editor, hey, this is what I need. The status bar right here, whether it's gray or red or green, that shows me exactly where this is, and I'll show you the details of each one of these in half a second. And then, of course, comments, and you'll see in most of the comments, I've basically just put what the red footage clip is actually that I pulled this from, but you can put anything in the comments. Like, for example, I have to identify this clip in the master edit, but let's just click on one and we'll see what we're talking about. So if I just click on one of these shots, shot 100, it brings up more details on it, and it tells you the number, the sequence, the length in frames, and the version that we're on. The shot description right here is anything that you want to add, the thumbnail. And then right over here, we have more details. For the clip, sometimes the editor handles this, sometimes the visual effects supervisor or the team handles this. Frame in and frame out, the lens used, and I'll show you how we get all this information because I have separate stuff that I record with this software when I'm on set, which is super important. Lens used, serial number of the lens, plates, the link, cam height in inches, and cam tilt. And then here's the big thing right here. If you take a look, we have work status, and we could pull it down and we could change this to anything we need. What is this shot doing? Is it not started? Work in progress? Is it awaiting client approval? If it is, usually if it needs more information or it's awaiting client approval, it's going to show up as red. If it's complete, that's over here when you see it that it's green, the whole thing is green, you have a big checkbox right next to it saying, hey, that one's done, you don't have to worry about that one. And of course, you can also filter by whatever you actually want to view, and so it makes it a little bit easier as well. But going back over to this, more notes that you're leaving yourself or somebody's leaving for you. Maybe the director says, hey, on this one, fade up and do whatever you got to do, notes that the director gives you. And then here's really important, this work required, and this is shot specific. Now, every shot requires a certain amount of work naturally, and punching in these quick little buttons here, these little radio buttons, enable the computer, enable the software to actually generate its own estimate of how much work this is going to be. How many shots require this task? How much in dollars? How much in time? So on something like this, I might say, well, this requires roto, key, and compositing. This requires 2D character animation and a matte painting. And you're going to see some of these actually have a C on them, which means complexity. But you can basically click on any one of these to say, hey, this is what this is required, tracking, composite, motion design, et cetera, et cetera. And then on top of that, to give it more of a minutia of getting this dialed in, we have a complexity adjustment. If we know we're looking out, say, over just some grass and some trees, maybe that matte painting isn't very complex, so we're creating it less complex. Or maybe you're looking out over a universe that's exploding. That's pretty complicated. So I'm going to make this more complex, and that's going to sway the cost of that particular shot. And all those numbers that you can sway through that margin is totally editable in this software. So it's really kind of useful for that. Right up here, because the director is also looking at this stuff, of course, you have the big view shot button where you could jump out. Now, I don't want to say that this software, this is not meant to replace software that allows you to view shots and leave notes on frames like Frame.io. This is in conjunction of software like Frame.io that we love to use, and this jumps right to the Frame.io shot, so they could leave notes there or they could leave notes right here, whatever they prefer. Clicking on the client feedback, the director or whoever's in charge can approve the shot, leave more notes, and then the feedback notes basically gets archived right down through here. This admin panel only shows up if you're an administrator, and that allows you to unapprove a shot or mark shots as overages and things of that nature. But this is the gist of the software because it shows me everything I need to see all the way down to the very end. So that's super important. And you could say, hey, this one actually needs volumetric light. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to see what the notes are, et cetera, et cetera. You're good to go. Of course, you can export this out to comma-separated values, or you can kick it out to a PDF if somebody wants to see that. And then, of course, adding a new shot just gives a blank one, and you just fill in whatever you need to add a new shot to that. It automatically gives you a new shot number. Numbers are never overwritten. All right, let's go to the breakdowns. There are 3 types of breakdowns that I use in my company. There's script breakdowns, there's discrepancy breakdowns, and there's production breakdowns. And to see the difference, nobody knows this stuff inherently. So right over here in the help section, I've actually broke down what this actually means for us. Now, you may have your own system, but for Inferno here, a VFX script versus a production breakdown, a quick guide on what that actually means. A script breakdown is simply an internal document for before we've even shot a frame of the movie. It's an indication of what the project may need. So this is a ballpark budget, and this ballpark may be way off. Why? Because we don't actually know what is going to be shot. We don't know if that 1 page of script is going to take 15 shots or 1 shot, right? So the script breakdown is pretty loose. It just basically tells you the average artist charges around this much for a typical shot of average time and complexity. Okay, there's no contracts, there's no scope of work documents, there's no commitments, and it changes rapidly in the pre-production. The production breakdown is where the tires meet the road, okay? This is after principal photography is complete. We know exactly how many VFX shots exist because the editor gave them to us. We know how long each shot is. We know what is required to finish each one. So this is a lot more accurate. This exact vendor will charge exactly this much and have it done precisely at this time. So that could come from external VFX vendors, or it could come from your company. And then, of course, there's what I call the discrepancy breakdown. And that's what this guy is right here, because so often on set, things come up that nobody had any anticipation or knowledge of, right? So the script breakdown is what we think we'll need. The production breakdown is what we will charge. But this one is what else occurred during the shoot. I was on a show. We were out in the middle of the woods, and we had a car that was broken down in the middle of the road. And, you know, in the movie, the car worked fine, obviously. But over the length of the night, the car battery died, right? Because we had the lights on the whole time, the brake lights and everything. So that just kind of comes up. That happens all the time. So in visual effects, we had to go and put the brake lights back in and add lighting to the elements that were around those, the lighting on the pavement, the lighting on people. So things come up that you don't know until you actually see it either in the cut or on the set. And that's what I call the discrepancy breakdown. And that's stuff that adds in, and I'll show you where that's found as well, because you always want to document everything, because someone's going to come to you and say, hey, why are you charging me more money when we agreed on this number? And then you could show them this and say, remember the car broke down? Oh yeah. And then some frequently asked questions and stuff like that. But jumping back to the script breakdown, let's just take a look at what that is. It's unlocked so we can see what this is. And it just gives you some grids of the work. And if you'll notice, this work right here that I'm showing, roto, special effects, tracking, compositing, this exactly matches the elements that you clicked on the master shot list right over here. So every time you click on one of these, it's going to add a number to our grid of the script breakdown. And now you could say, hey, what is a simulation or an effects artist? You say, every time you click on that, it's going to add a shot here. The average rate per artist, and this is all totally editable, and these numbers are just for demo purposes. We could say $60 an hour for simulation effects. You know, it could be a lot more, probably is. The average hours that the artist needs on per shot, and then the total. Now, again, this is ballpark. It's not going to be probably remotely close, but it's going to be closer if you just, you know, shot a dart in the dark, right? And then it's going to put all the actual shots in here on the actual production breakdown. So if I go to the production breakdown right over here, this is, for example, putting the information in for 99 shots, okay, of various complexities, and it's measuring all that out. And then it goes through and it brings in every one of those shots that you already put, and it gives you the cost of each shot with complexity adjustments included. So this is exactly the same thing we saw in the master shot list. It also tells you exactly what's included as far as tasks on this one, as well as some notes that you might need. And then scrolling down, 99 shots at X amount of dollars, what does that actually create as far as giving you a ballpark? And if I scroll down to the end, now this number could be widely different depending on the numbers that you're using, but just the numbers I punched in, 100 visual effects shots of varying complexity, $439,000 for that studio, which includes an overage of 0. That's included later on. And then of course the milestone payments. But that figures it down, to such a degree that you'd never be able just to estimate, by just thinking up how many shots, that exact number. But now you can go back to the people you're working with and say, when they ask you, how did you get that number so exact? Well, it's because this is our numbers that we're working with. This is the matrix we plugged in. We can massage that together, but that's what we're looking at, and that gives you a bigger indication of what this project may cost. The discrepancy breakdown right over here is basically just what you're filling out. Sometimes you do it on set, and it's just actually just telling you what you're actually recording, and then you could take care of that a little bit later. Now I'll go through the rest of this stuff, especially with the on-set data capture stuff that I've created, as well as some other stuff to keep everything very, very organized so you can stay organized as well.